The following film has not been rated by the Motion Picture Association of America due to explicit sexual behavior
and adult themes.
It is not intended for viewers
under the age of 18.
Greetings, this is Reverend Paul, and this, of course, is Studio Chojin Raw. Today, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite animes, a little anime called Le Blue Girl. And let's just get right to it, shall we? So, Le Blue Girl is a 6-part OVA series, and it was released between June of 1992 and March of 1994. Le Blue Girl was directed by Kan Fukumoto, and the animation was produced by Studio Dandelion, which is probably better known to anime fans as Studio Arms, which, of course, is the studio behind such awesome series as Queen's Blade, Ikitosen, Mezzo DSA. Basically, if you're looking for an anime that has hot chicks, fan service, and groovy hentai action, then Studio Arms is your best friend. Le Blue Girl tells the story of Miko Mito, and on first look, one might assume that Miko Mito is a typical Japanese schoolgirl, but looks can be deceiving because Miko Mito is no ordinary Japanese schoolgirl. Sure, by day she may go to class and do average things your normal schoolgirl might do, but when she's not in school, Miko Mito is training in the deadly ninja arts. That's right, Miko Mito is a modern-day ninja warrior living in Tokyo. She even has a short ninja sidekick named Nin Nin who assists on all of her crazy adventures. And if that isn't fucking badass enough, Miko Mito is no ordinary ninja. She is next in line to become the leader of the Miroku Ninja Clan. And the Miroku Ninja Clan is a pretty fucking big deal because they're pretty much the most powerful ninja clan existing in modern times. And the reason for this is because the Miroku Ninja Clan is able to control the Shikima. Now, what I have not yet mentioned is that there is another thing that makes Miko Mito and the Miroku clan unique amongst ninjas. And the thing that makes them unique is that they do not practice a traditional form of ninjutsu. They practice a form of combat you probably never even heard of. It's not karate or fucking taekwondo. No. Miko Mito has a martial art called the Sex Craft. And the Sex Craft is pretty interesting because it is not a conventional martial art. The Sex Craft is all about fighting people with sex. Miko Mito basically fucks people into submission. It is perfectly reasonable to describe Miko Mito as an anime sex ninja. And the Shikima are sex demons that exist in another dimension, and the Miroku clan have a deal with them. As long as the Miroku clan controls this signet, the Shikima will serve as the allies of the Miroku clan. Now, I know what you're thinking. Miko Mito is the fucking coolest chick ever. She's a fucking hot anime girl. She's a fucking ninja. She lives in 1990s anime Tokyo, and she fights people with sex. That is pretty fucking cool. Miko Mito has an awesome life. We all wish we could live comparable lives to Miko Mito. I don't know where I'm going with this, but this is the thing, my friend. Miko Mito does not have a perfect life because what ends up happening is one day when meeting with her grandmother, Miko and her grandmother are attacked by Suzuka ninjas, and Miko's grandmother is killed, and the signet that seals the deal between the Miroku clan and the Shikima is stolen. At that point, the Suzuka clan uses their control of the Shikima to attack Miko Mito and her loved ones. So needless to say, things have gotten pretty bad for Miko, which become pretty obvious one day when Miko is on her way home and she is accosted by a bald man on a fucking streetlight. And this has got to be one of the scariest fucking things that could ever happen to a person. Could you imagine coming home and seeing this bald motherfucker in his underwear standing on a fucking streetlight staring menacingly at you? That would freak me the fuck out. Because you know the reason this motherfucker climbed up there is because he wanted to give everybody a good fucking view when those tighty whities came off. This motherfucker was gonna spread those legs and that taint was gonna be on display for the whole fucking world to see. Anyway, this bald motherfucker attacks Miko and he turns into a fucking Shikima, and Miko begins to be tentacle raped by this Shikima monster. Now, I have to admit, Miko is in a pretty fucked up situation, but it's pretty awesome for us who enjoy groovy tentacle action. And this scene is a pretty big deal because it's the first time Miko Mito is ever attacked by tentacles in an anime. I mean, Miko Mito is kind of synonymous with tentacles. Even though there's a lot of limited animation in this scene, the scene scene makes up for it by having really great artwork. And this is something we're going to see a lot in Le Blue Girl. Even though a lot of the sex scenes in this series have a lot of limited animation, the animation team will make up for it by having these really cool detailed drawings. And these things look awesome. Even if you're not into hentai, you have to agree that, like, visually this is really striking imagery. And another thing that makes this scene cool is that we get to see Miko Mito's sex craft at work. And the way Miko Mito is able to get out of this situation is by fucking taking her pubes and making them as hard as a fucking needle and shooting them out into this motherfucker's eyes, blinding him for a fucking minute. Later on in the series, Miko's sister Miyu, who's a film actress, is kidnapped by the Shikima and she is taken to the Shikima realm. And it's at this point Miko Mito realizes that she cannot run from the Shikima, she has to fight them, and she has to save her sister. But how is she going to get to the Shikima realm? How does one travel from one dimension to another? This is fucking impossible. There's no way anyone can do this. But hope is not lost, because the ghost of Miko's grandmother comes to her and tells her, Miko, you could totally get to the Shikima realm if you fucking drink the sperm of a virgin, and then you like put your face down and your ass up and you point your snatch to the north and you masturbate while chanting the Shikima fucking name. When you do that shit, you will be transported to a land of like ecstasy and fucking erotic nightmares, and that land is the fucking Shikima realm. And that's what Miko does, and she fucking goes to the Shikima realm and she rescues Miyu, and along the way there is more awesome tentacle action. Now, what I have not yet mentioned is that the 6-part Le Blue Girl anime is actually based off of the 6-volume Le Blue Girl manga, which was released between 1989 and 1992. Now, Le Blue Girl was written and drawn by the one and only, the tentacle master himself, Toshio Maeda. And Toshio Maeda is a person that viewers of this channel should be familiar with. He's a bit of a hero of mine. This channel is named Studio Chojin after his seminal work, Urusei Doji. Toshio Maeda is awesome. He is the godfather of tentacle porn. I don't know if you could call him the inventor of tentacle porn. I think that honor goes to Hokusai, but Toshio Maeda certainly is the person that popularized tentacles in manga and modern anime. In the past, Maeda has even explained that he started to draw tentacles as a way to get around the draconian restrictions in Japanese censorship laws. Because you see, in Japan, it is illegal to show genitalia. You cannot show genitals. That's why anytime you're watching JAV, the chicks always have fucking pixelated snatches. So despite what other people may think, pixelized pussies are not a natural phenomenon in Japan. They are an unfortunate result of Japanese censorship. Maeda has even mentioned that the Japanese censorship laws were so strict that you couldn't even show a man on top of a woman in a non-sexual manner. Just them touching was considered too intense for the audience. So as a way to get around those draconian censorship laws, Maeda pioneered the use of tentacles as a way for characters to interact with each other without actually having recognizable parts of the human body touch each other. And another cool thing about tentacles is that you can draw them in all their slimy detail. Every single vein and crevice of a tentacle can be drawn in a manga and it will not be censored. And the way the Japanese censors see it, tentacles aren't sexual because a tentacle is just a part of a creature's body. My favorite thing about tentacles is that tentacles allow an artist to draw a chick getting fucked from any position and any angle. Tentacles truly are the gift that keeps on giving. Now, Toshio Maeda is a pretty versatile artist. He's worked in all different kinds of manga genres. He's worked in mystery, educational, but he is mainly known for his work in erotic horror. As I mentioned before, the 6-episode Le Blue Girl anime is based off of the 6-volume Le Blue Girl manga. And for the most part, the anime is actually relatively faithful to the manga. The stories as they take place in the anime are more or less what happens in the manga. But I feel like the best way to describe the relationship between the Le Blue Girl manga and the Le Blue Girl anime is to think about the relationship between the arcade version of Mortal Kombat and the Sega Genesis version of Mortal Kombat. If you've played the Sega Genesis version of Mortal Kombat, you've basically played Mortal Kombat. More or less, I mean, that's the game. But the Sega Genesis version of Mortal Kombat is missing key details that really change the experience altogether. And I think anybody who's played both versions of Mortal Kombat would tell you the arcade version is by far better than any console version. the sound is better, the graphics are better, the controls are more responsive. And I feel like we could say the same thing about Le Blue Girl, where more or less the Le Blue Girl anime is an adaptation of the Le Blue Girl manga. But there are certain key details in the manga that really add a lot of nuance to the Le Blue Girl story, and that in combination with some other things we're going to talk about really make, in my opinion, the Le Blue Girl manga the superior version of this story. For example, Miyu in the anime, she's kind of a shitty character. I mean, she's just kind of confused and horny. Miyu in the manga is not a movie actress. Miyu in the manga is the owner of like a Japanese AV studio, and she produces porn videos. And what's great about this is that in the manga, there's this dynamic where Miyu is constantly trying to get Miko to get into porn. And what I love about this is that given what we know about the characters, this makes complete sense. Because it seems pretty obvious that Miko Mito is destined to be a Japanese AV idol. Her sex craft makes her the perfect candidate. If Miko Mito was a real person, she would be a world famous Japanese adult video star. And I also think making Miyu an adult video producer really shows Toshio Maeda's strength as a writer, because he keeps sex as the central theme of the story. You know, Miko Mito is a ninja who studies sexcraft, and Miyu, she makes adult videos. And so both Mito sisters are kind of like defined by their sexuality. Miko is using her sexuality in a more noble way to kind of fight evil ninjas and demons, and Miyu is using sexuality as a way to make money. And Miyu in the manga is a much more ruthless figure, where she's completely okay with lying to Miko and manipulating her to try to get her way. In the manga, Miyu even doses Miko with a ninja sex potion because she wants Miko to fill in for an actress who didn't show up to shoot a porn scene. Miyu in the manga is a pretty fucked up person, but she is infinitely more interesting than Miyu in the anime. Miyu in the manga has a personality. She's a flawed character, but a character nonetheless. So when you compare Miyu in the manga to her anime counterpart, you can't help but be really fucking disappointed because Miyu in the anime isn't really given anything to do. Another story arc that I think works better in the manga is the story arc that introduces Fubuki Kai. And Fubuki Kai is pretty fucking awesome because Fubuki Kai is kind of like Bizarro Miko Mito. She does everything Miko won't do. In the manga, Fubuki Kai is totally down with being a porn star, and Miyu even tells Miko she should be more like Fubuki. And I think this is a really awesome story arc, and the anime adapts it pretty faithfully. I love the way Fubuki is constantly trying to outdo Miko and how Miko is just so confused by Fubuki and why she hates her. The one thing that does kind of annoy me though is that in the anime they kind of remove the consequences from Fubuki's transformation. What we end up finding out through this Fubuki story arc is that Fubuki wants to be a ninja just as great as Miko Mito, but she will never be that great because Miko Mito is half demon. She has blue blood. That's why she is the blue girl. So in order to rectify this, Fubuki decides to become a demon herself. And the Shikima King turns Fubuki into a demon. In the anime, this is a pretty nonchalant affair. Fubuki turns into a demon, Miko's kind of weirded out by it, but everything's kind of normal and then that's it. But the manga makes a bigger deal out of Fubuki's transformation and even shows that there are consequences. When Fubuki transforms, it's a much more grotesque sequence, and the king of the Shikima tells Fubuki she will turn into this monster every day unless every 2 days she kisses Miko and sucks out her breath. So it's a sexy stipulation, but a stipulation nonetheless, and creates a set of consequences for Fubuki's decision. And it really gives us more insight into Fubuki's character because she is willing to sacrifice her humanity, all in an effort to become a great ninja. Now, even though I'm not happy with some of the changes the Blue Girl anime makes to the story, there are some changes that the anime makes that I think work really well. For example, in the manga, the Shikima are after Miko because Miko's grandmother had a heart attack while she was showing Miko the signet, and as she was keeling over, the light of the signet shined on Miko, and that basically put the Shikima curse on her, and that's why the Shikima are after her. And the Suzuka ninjas actually don't show up to the second volume. So I like the fact that the anime combines these story ideas by making the Suzuka clan responsible for killing Miko's grandmother and responsible for turning the Shikima against Miko. It really makes the Suzuka clan central to the narrative, and in the manga, they felt more like just another group of villains she was fighting. Another strength I think the manga has over the anime is the art style. Toshio Maeda is an amazing artist. Personally, I think he has the best layouts in manga. No other manga artist has layouts as cool as Toshio Maeda. Maeda has actually cited a lot of American artists as influences. Artists like Neil Adams, Gil Kane, Bernie Wrightson, and you could totally see this in his art. I feel like you could definitely see the influence of Bernie Wrightson with the way Maeda uses shadow. That heavy use of shadow, to me, really kind of invokes a lot of Bernie Wrightson's art in Swamp Thing. And I feel like you could definitely see the Neil Adams influence in the way Toshio Maeda poses his characters. Maeda often does these kind of full body poses that break panels, and that to me feels very in line with a lot of stuff you would see Neil Adams do. And I don't think Maeda has ever mentioned this, but I actually feel like Maeda draws a lot of inspiration from Steve Ditko and Jim Steranko as well. When you look at the surrealistic stuff, anytime the characters travel to the Shikima world or they travel to another dimension, the way the backgrounds are drawn and stuff like that remind me a lot of the way Steve Ditko would draw Doctor Strange comics. And Toshio Maeda will kind of do this thing sometimes where he'll repeat images, and that reminds me a lot of Steranko. Now, I think the character designs in the Blue Girl anime are pretty good. The first episode of Blue Girl, the character designer is credited as Kinji Yoshimoto, but for the rest of the Blue Girl series, character designs are done by Rin Sin. And Rin Sin is a veteran of Studio Arms. He did character designs for Twin Angels, Venus 5, Midnight Panther, and is probably more recently known for his character designs in Queen's Blade and Nikki Tosin. I think Rin Sin is an awesome character designer, and his style is perfect for ecchi anime. I love the way he draws characters' hair and the way the characters' hair kind of flows, and I love the way his characters walk that line of being very sexy but also being very cute at the same time. I also want to say this shot of Miko Mito on the bike is awesome. This is one of the iconic shots of the Blue Girl anime. I remember seeing it in a manga magazine. It was probably my first introduction to Blue Girl. I love this shot, and it's simple, but it's a shot that's unique to the anime, and it does a great job in conveying the bubbly, fun-loving personality of Miko. Overall, I think the character designs in the Blue Girl anime are cool, and if there wasn't a manga to compare them to, I would just be sitting here talking about how great the art style is in the Blue Girl anime. But I do have to say, while I think the character designs for the Blue Girl anime are good, I feel like they kind of lose the uniqueness of Toshio Maeda's manga designs. Every adaptation of a Go Nagai anime always keep the Go Nagai style. So every anime that is based off of a Go Nagai manga still feels like it's coming from Go Nagai. But with Toshio Maeda adaptations, Demon Beast Invasion, Urusuke Doji, Nightmare Campus, they never use Toshio Maeda's original designs. They always change the designs, and Maeda's designs are awesome. The thing that I love about Toshio Maeda's designs is that they feel very steeped in the 80s. When you look at Miko Mito, the way Toshio Maeda draws her, sure, she looks like a Japanese anime character, but you look at her jean jacket and kind of the pattern on her bow, it really feels like she's a Japanese anime character that lives in 1980s Japan, like real 1980s Japan. There's this grounded feel to Toshio Maeda's artwork. His characters, while stylish, feel like they occupy the same world as you and me. But if you look at Miko Mito, the way she's designed by Rin Sin, she looks cool, but she looks like a Japanese anime character that exists in a 1990s anime. That's not to say that the design of Miko looks bad, it just looks like a lot of anime designs that you would see during this time. Even Yaku in the manga, I think, has this very cool girl next door quality, especially in the way she dresses with the jacket and the long dress. She seems like she could be a chick chick that you could meet in your everyday life. But anime Yaku just kind of feels like an anime girl, you know? Not to say that that's bad, it just doesn't have that kind of like uniqueness that the manga has to it. I think it's also worth talking about the demon forms of Fubuki and Yaku. I like the anime version of Fubuki and Yaku's demon forms, but they do kind of feel like sexy versions. Like the anime version of Yaku's werewolf form really does kind of feel like a sexy werewolf. And what I love about Fubuki's monster design in the anime is that it reminds me of the kind of monsters you would see in like the real Ghostbusters, like Boogaloo or something like that. Like fucking Fubuki in the anime looks like a sexy Boogaloo. It's weird. In contrast to the anime, Toshio Maeda's manga designs are much more gruesome. Yaku's werewolf form in the manga is very much a she-wolf. Like she looks like a woman who turned into a werewolf. And Fubuki turns into this weird like ghoulish creature. So one of the things that really make Toshio Maeda's artwork stand out is the fact that he is not afraid to mix the erotic and the grotesque. I also feel like it's fair to say that the grounded nature of Toshio Maeda's character designs really emphasize the otherworldliness of the settings. In other words, the realistic characters really make the surrealistic environments stand out. Now, even though I think the manga character designs beat out the anime character designs just by virtue of the fact that the manga has that unique Toshio Maeda-ness to it, I do have to say, I like the design of Kamiri in the anime a lot better than the design of Kamiri in the manga. Kamiri in the manga looks cool and definitely has that cool 80s Toshio Maeda feel, but Kamiri in the anime is awesome. I mean, honestly, I think she's probably like the fucking hottest chick in this fucking show. I mean, Kamiri's fucking sexy as hell, and the way they draw her in the show is fucking awesome. I think the animation team behind La Blue Girl knew Kamiri was going to be the breakout star of this series because she has all the best shots. The rendering on her always looks really cool. She's always in cool lighting. Kamiri, fucking awesome, and will get my vote for the hottest anime babe in the La Blue Girl anime. Manga Kamiri has like an 80s punk rock vibe that I think is cool, but I think the design of Kamiri in the anime suits her character a lot better as this kind of like cold, silent, sexy ninja killer. And if you're still not convinced of anime Kamiri's awesomeness, there is a scene exclusive to the anime where Kamiri shoots water up the asshole of a fucking monster kappa. That, my friends, is the mark of a true badass. On the downside though, I don't know what's going on with the La Blue Girl anime, but it has this weird obsession with bald men. The first demon Miyu is attacked by is a fucking bald guy. In the manga, he's wearing fucking clothes. He's got a fucking hat on and a jacket. He looks like a fucking hobo. It's interesting. In the anime, for some reason, they just made him a fucking bald dude. And the anime's obsession with bald motherfuckers doesn't end with that fucking demon. Kagutsman in the anime is bald too. If you look at Kagutsman in the manga, he's got fucking hair. He looks like sometimes he's got on a fucking Hawaiian shirt. He's a fucking rad looking dude. He's got fucking personality. Anime Kagutsman, generic bald guy. And the leader of the robot ninjas is a fucking bald guy who is revealed to be the fucking bald dude Senzo from episode 2. Now, yes, I know that the leader of the cyborg ninjas was also bald in the manga, but the manga version was a much more interesting looking bald man. What is up with the anime and fucking bald guys? The last thing that kind of annoys me about the La Blue Girl anime is the fact that the anime takes so long to introduce Miko's hair flip technique. Miko's hair flip technique is like her power geyser, and the anime doesn't get to it till episode 4. In the manga, Miko uses her hair flip technique to defeat the Suzuka ninjas. The anime actually teases Miko's hair flip technique in the first episode when she's being attacked by Kiyomara, and we see her taking off her bow. But she doesn't do the hair flip, she just does some weird, like, I don't know, body glowing thing. I don't know if they did this because of budget restraints or what, but I can't understand how you do not put Miko's fucking signature move in the first episode. The whole point of the giant bow is so she could dramatically take the fucking thing off and do her awesome hair flip move. Saving the hair flip for the 4th episode of the anime was a terrible idea. I also wanted to mention two stories that appear in the manga that don't appear in the anime. The first story is a story where Miko has to save a bunch of her friends from a bike gang. And I think this is a really cool story because you get to see Miko use her sex craft on normal people. I think this is a really great adventure Miko goes on. And the other story that I think is really cool in the manga is there's a sequence in the manga where Miko goes to the gym and she's attacked by this mechanical schema monster. And what makes this story so cool is that it doesn't have any dialogue. The entire story is told through the pictures. And this story really showcases Toshio Maeda's ability as a visual storyteller. And I really do think this sequence is one of the standout sequences from the Le Blue Girl manga. It has a great sense of motion and action. I think the poses are really sexy. And I think this scene is a really great example of like surrealistic action. Now, underneath all the craziness of Le Blue Girl, I think Toshio Maeda is telling a very personal story. And I realize that may sound weird because Le Blue Girl is a hentai and Toshio Maeda is not a blue-haired ninja girl who fights demons using sex. I realize describing Le Blue Girl as a personal story may sound odd, but let me explain myself. Anytime an artist depicts sex in their work, whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously, they cannot help but reveal parts about themselves in that work. So works about sex tend to be very honest works and they tend to be very revealing. Robert Crumb is an underground comic book artist who is very much a contemporary of Toshio Maeda, and like Toshio Maeda, Robert Crumb's work is very sexual, and Robert Crumb has made it very clear that the reason he depicts these weird sexual scenes in his artwork is because he's trying to kind of work through his own twisted thoughts about sexuality and how he feels about them. For Robert Crumb, his comics are basically his form of therapy. It's basically him saying, look, I have these weird kind of fantasies in my head and I think they're fucking weird, but it makes me feel better just to get them out there. At least I don't have to think about them anymore. And there are mainstream artists like Madonna who uses the sexuality in her work as a way to talk about the sexual repression she felt growing up as a result of her Christian upbringing. So Robert Crumb and Madonna are using sexuality in their work as a way to reveal personal truths about themselves. And I feel like the same could be said about Toshio Maeda and Le Blue Girl. I think when you look beneath the surface of Le Blue Girl, you find that Le Blue Girl is a story about a man exploring his relationship with female sexuality. Now, the first thing that probably comes to everybody's mind is the tentacle rape sequences. And you're probably thinking to yourself, these tentacle rape sequences are kind of a male power fantasy about being a sexually experienced man preying on a much more vulnerable woman. And I do think that is a fair way to describe certain aspects of Le Blue Girl, but I do think there is more there. Because even though there are male power fantasy elements within Le Blue Girl, I think the main theme of Le Blue Girl is the power of female sexuality. Even though these women are being taken advantage of by these tentacle demons and these evil ninjas, they are always able to overcome these individuals with the power of their sexuality. There are even male characters like Hammer and Kamito who are inexperienced, nerdy male characters who are intimidated by the female characters because they are so like overtly sexy. Now, I probably should have explained this earlier, but Kamito is a character that doesn't appear in the anime. Kamito is a character that only appears in the manga. Kamito is the dude Miko has to blow in order to get virgin sperm in order to go to the Schema realm. In the anime, Nin makes Miko some fucking like quasi sperm concoction. I don't know. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and we'll discuss more of that later. But I guess it's worth mentioning that Kamito is the dude Miko blows to get sperm, and he is a character that is reinforcing this idea of the power of female sexuality, because he is a character that is smitten with Miko and will just let her blow him anytime she wants. So in that regard, I think it's fair to say that Le Blue Girl is a female positive show. Dare I say the female characters in Le Blue Girl are empowered. Even though their sexuality may make them vulnerable, it is ultimately the thing that makes them powerful. In the world of Le Blue Girl, sex is a literal weapon. It is the ultimate weapon. And the women of the Moroku clan are the most powerful ninja in this world because their sex craft is so powerful. And this is what I feel like Toshio Maeda is exposing about himself. He is a man who is kind of in awe with the power of female sexuality. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is Toshio Maeda is imbued imbuing his characters with a sexual power because he is recognizing the power female sexuality holds over him. And at the same time, he recognizes how vulnerable female sexuality is. Now, I do think the anime version of La Blue Girl changes this. As I mentioned before, the anime omits the Kamito character. The anime also takes out a lot of the scenes of Miko practicing her sex craft. So you don't have a lot of scenes in the anime of Miko literally taking her sexuality in her own hands. And there's one story arc that I think is pretty interesting, especially the way the anime changes it. In the La Blue Girl manga, we are introduced to this ethereal being named Taijuten. And Taijuten is kind of a living Buddha that appears as a woman. And Taijuten has the power to suck people into their snatch and like reveal the powers of the universe. And Taijuten recruits the rogue Suzuka ninja and through a weird twist of fate turns the Suzuka ninja into cyborgs. This is a great story arc in the manga and in the anime because it's so fucking crazy. It just has cyborg ninjas, ethereal beings. It just takes fucking crazy turns. So anyway, the ethereal being Taijuten uses these cyborg ninjas to attack the Shikima realm. And in the manga, Miko and her father defeat Taijuten and the robot ninjas, and Taijuten vanishes into the ether and is allowed to exist as some kind of weird ethereal being. The anime changes things slightly. In the anime, the king of the Shikimas fucks Taijuten to death. So I think it's fair to say that the anime is aggressive in its treatment of female sexuality. But I would argue, even though the anime leans more into the power fantasy element of La Blue Girl, the anime still has that idea of female empowerment in it because the women of La Blue Girl, specifically Miko Mito, always save the day with the power of their sex craft. I also think La Blue Girl is a great parody of the anime martial arts genre like Dragon Ball. The quote-unquote fight scenes in La Blue Girl really show you how absurd some of these special techniques are, and it's really great to see how far the series will go with these special ninja techniques like Miko Mito's Neo Ninbo. Now, there are probably modern hentais that have better sex scenes, but La Blue Girl is a real classic of the hentai genre, and I think still holds up after all of these years. Even though I think the anime is kind of a watered down version of the story, I still think the anime is awesome and a lot of fun. I think some of the standout sex scenes in La Blue Girl are the scenes with Miyu being attacked by Kiyomara. The scene with Miyu and Ranmaru is a really great scene. Even Miko's scene with Bosatsu is really cool. And later on in the series, I think the sex scenes with Yaku and Hammer are awesome. Lots of great fucking hentai action. If you're looking for shit to like stimulate, if you're looking for a classic anime to be like stimulating, then look no further than La Blue Girl. I think La Blue Girl is a great series. And I feel like at times it even kind of transcends the hentai genre and it just becomes a kind of great comedy, horror, action series. In a lot of ways, I think it's fair to describe La Blue Girl, both the anime and the manga, as kind of like a hentai Evil Dead. There's a lot of monsters and gore, but there's also a lot of comedy and funny situations. It's certainly not going to be for everybody. If you're somebody who hates hentai, you probably should avoid La Blue Girl. If you're somebody who hates hentai, I don't even know why you're watching this channel. But if you're somebody like me, if you're a lover of ecchi hentai anime babes, then I cannot recommend La Blue Girl enough. I love La Blue Girl. I have been a La Blue Girl fan for a very long time. I still have my original DVDs and I love these things. The artwork on these things looks so awesome. And I was even fortunate enough a while back to email Toshio Maeda and I was actually able to get some original artwork from the La Blue Girl manga, which is really cool. I can't say enough good things about Toshio Maeda. I think he's one of the greatest manga artists ever and it means so much to me to actually own some of his artwork. I don't mean to end this video on a sad note, but it's worth noting Studio Arms, the company that produced La Blue Girl, and numerous other hentai anime series like Mezzodiase, Advancertina, and Queen's Blade. It's worth mentioning that in 2019, Studio Arms had to file for bankruptcy and close its doors. And one of the key reasons cited was the decline in the adult anime market. It's also really important to point out that at the moment, there really doesn't seem to be a way to read the LeBlue Girl manga in English. The LeBlue Girl manga has only been translated once, and that was by Central Park Media back in the early 2000s or late 90s, and that version of the story is currently out of print. I mean, you could probably track it down, but as of now, there really aren't any new English versions of LeBlue Girl. So I feel like if there's anything positive this video can do, it's to help spread the word about LeBlue Girl, to help spread the word that it's an awesome series. It's to help spread the word that adult anime is awesome and is worth checking out. And if you can, buy a manga, buy a DVD, support your favorite artists, do what you can to support the anime industry, because even though Studio Arms is gone, we could still get another LeBlue Girl series down the line. So let's do what we can to support the series and check out LeBlue Girl. It's fucking awesome.
Imagine you wake up in Jurassic Park and you're a raptor. You have sharp teeth and 7-inch claws, and since you've been extinct for 65 million years, you'd be in a really bad mood.
System engaged. Soul sector.
Take out! 100 Mega Shock Neo Geo.
いくつもの伝説が生まれ、そして消えてゆく。狼は眠らない。画廊伝説スペシャル。SNK。
This week's question comes from Killer City, and Killer City writes, "Hey Paul, love your channel. I wanted to ask your opinion about the 1997 Berserk TV adaptation. Also, are you going to cover Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust?" Thank you, Killer City, for the question. So, what do I think about the 1997 Berserk TV series, and will I cover Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust? First off, I think the 1997 Berserk TV series is awesome. It's a great retelling of the Golden Age story arc, and I think it's a great introduction to the story of Berserk. If you had a friend that knew nothing about Berserk and you wanted to get them into Berserk, you would give them the 1997 TV series. I think that's how most people got into that story, and I think it is because the Golden Age story arc really is, I mean, that's Berserk. That's the story. I feel like the entire scope of the Berserk story, the character arcs, they could all be contained in that Golden Age story arc. After the Golden Age story arc, I feel like the story is kind of just like spinning its wheels and it doesn't really know what it's doing, you know, like spoilers if you haven't read the fucking Berserk manga, but like, you know, Griffith becomes Femto and then he becomes Griffith again, and it's like, what? We just watched this epic journey of Griffith turn into a fucking god hand Cenobite, and now he's fucking Griffith again? That doesn't make any fucking sense. That would be like if they did a whole trilogy showing how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, then made a sequel trilogy where Darth Vader became Anakin again. The Golden Age story arc is such an awesome self-contained story, and I feel like where the TV series ends is kind of a perfect ending for Berserk. Guts loses his surrogate family in the Band of the Hawk, he loses the woman he loves, and he embarks on this quest of revenge. And honestly, whether he succeeds in his quest or he doesn't, really doesn't matter. I mean, all we really need to know as the audience is that Guts has become consumed by revenge. The ending of the Golden Age story arc, where the TV series ends, is kind of a perfect ending, artistically speaking, for that story. I realize people want to see ongoing adventures. It was really sad losing Kentaro Miura this year. He was such an amazing manga artist, and he had such a profound impact on manga and anime. His voice is a voice that's going to be missed. But I do feel like the Berserk story, even though the story doesn't have an official ending, it does kind of have an ending, because that Golden Age story arc, that is the story. You watch Guts go from this directionless anti-hero to a person who's lost everything and he's a man on a mission. We see Griffith's descent from this optimistic hero into this fallen, despicable villain. It's perfect. It's Shakespearean. The Golden Age story arc is awesome. Obviously, I think Kentaro Miura is great, and I think his artwork in the Berserk manga is really, really well done. But in answer to your question, I think the Berserk TV series is great. It is the perfect distilled version of that story, and in some ways, I think it might even be the definitive version of that story. And will I be talking about Vampire Hunter D and Bloodlust? Yes, I will. Vampire Hunter D, the original one from 1985, is one of the first animes I had ever seen. The first two animes that I had ever seen were The Guyver and the original Vampire Hunter D. They were the first time I saw an anime and I knew it was anime. I had seen Voltron, I had seen Robotech, which are kind of these watered down licensed version of Go Line and Macross, but Vampire Hunter D and The Guyver were the first anime series that I saw, and I knew they were Japanese anime. And The Guyver, Vampire Hunter D, and the Dominion Tank Police, Masamune Shiro's artwork, I mean, those are the things that made me an anime fan and set me on my journey to anime fandom. So yes, I will definitely be talking about Vampire Hunter D. The reason I haven't talked about Vampire Hunter D earlier is because I wanted to do a super comprehensive Vampire Hunter D video where I talk about the anime, the books, the game, the comics. I wanted to do this super thorough video, and it just, the workload piled up, and it's just, I kept putting it off and putting it off. But I will eventually do it. It's probably not going to be super thorough, but I will totally do a video talking about Vampire Hunter D. Thank you, Killer City, for sending in a question. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you want to suggest a topic, if you just want to argue with me and tell me I suck, you could send me an email at studiochojin@gmail.com, make the subject raw, and I will eventually read your question on a future edition of the show. So that wraps up this week's edition of Studio Chojin Raw. I hope you enjoyed hearing about Le Blue Girl, one of my personal favorite animes. In the coming weeks, we're going to be talking about Perfect Blue. We're going to be talking about Jushin Liger. Lots of cool stuff coming up. And if you're somebody who wants to support this channel, you could always do so by subscribing. You could like the video. You could leave a comment. I implore you, join the unholy army of the night and become a regular viewer of Studio Chojin. And so I think that's all I have to say this week. So once again, this is Reverend Paul saying, until we meet again.